I met with an investor guy and he promised to pay me 5% a month on my cash. So I gave him $50,000 and I'm getting 5% a month, which is $2,500 a month of reoccurring cash flow coming in. So I gave him another $250,000 and the checks kept coming. So then I gave him another 500 grand. Now I've got 800 grand with him, 5%, and the checks kept coming. So I introduced it to some clients. And next thing you know, we had over $10 million with investor guy and the checks kept coming until August of 2007 and no check came. And then all of a sudden my phone rings and I hear on the other line, this is Special Agent Mark Jones with the FBI. We understand you have investment dealings with investor guy. We need to talk. All of that cash was completely gone. I was trying to stay alive, man. I was on antidepressants. I was buying narcotic pain pills just to try to numb myself out. I wake up to a knock to our front door and I go. It was early in the morning, like 6 a.m. and I opened it up and it's my wife's family there, standing there. And they said, we're here for Wendy and the kids, they're moving out. I'll never forget watching our kids in the back of my wife's car as I sat on the front porch as they drove away. I loaded a bullet in the chamber of a Ruger P89 pistol and pressed it up against the roof of my mouth. I was alone on the bathroom floor and I was screaming to God, why? When I had a rush come over my body and I carefully set the gun down and I promised to God and to myself in that moment that I would extract the lessons that led to that point of putting that gun in my mouth and to share them with as many people as I possibly could.
Mike, I'm excited I get to speak to you today as one of my Titans in my life and being on the board of my Titans. Today, we're just going to have a conversation about you to where I get to interview you and your mindset around wealth and life so that not only can I have it for my own life, but that I get to share with others, especially younger business owners, because they need these type of conversations in their world. So I'm excited that we get to talk today.
Yeah, Brock, I'm excited also. Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, Mike, you wrote two of my all-time favorite books, What Would the Rockefellers Do and What We Were Worth. Cool. What Would the Rockefellers Do is awesome, and there's some good laughs in there, and it can get pretty technical. But What We're Worth happens to make you cry. It happens to make you laugh, and just taking a look at what's actually going on in your life. So without going into too much detail so people can read the book, why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about your story and how you got here today?
Well, you can see I have a motorcycle in my office. I grew up, and I'm in my home office. Right through this door over here is my garage to our house. And when we built this home, we built a 2,600 square foot garage. Back at the time, I was racing off-road, so we had race trailer and all sorts of fun stuff in there. But motorcycles is something that I grew up with in 7th grade. My first experience, Brock, with money came with me exchanging my time at Cycletown Yamaha in the 7th grade, making $2.25 an hour. And I love thinking back on those days because, back then, 7th grade, I was into dirt bikes, so I was earning money to pay for things for dirt bikes. I was buying my clothes for school. Those are the most important things. And then probably more into 8th grade, 9th grade for sure. It was then money to go on dates with girls. So that exchange of money and learning the value of a dollar came at a really young age for me. And I'm grateful for that as I look back on it. And I stayed in the motorcycle industry until my first year at college. And that's when I met my wife, Wendy. We had our 2 kids, Kennedy and Caden. And my first year of college, I responded to an ad to sell cell phones here in Southern Utah. 1993, Brock. August of 1993, cell phones. They were the big Motorola brick phones at the time. And I thought this would be a great job to do part-time while I'm going to college. Little did I know, in 30 days, August of 1993, I made $20,000, which was 10 times what I was making at the Yamaha shop working. And man, I thought I'd arrived, right? 20 grand back then in
Good.
1993 with inflation's equivalent to maybe 80 or 90 grand today
It's
in a
pretty
month
good.
at the age of 22.
It's not bad.
I hadn't made 20 grand in a year, let alone in 30 days, right? I'm engaged to be married. We got married December of 93, just a few months later, starting at the cell phone shop. So I didn't go to college that fall quarter. I was going to college for accounting. I love numbers. Wasn't I thought I might become a CPA or an accountant. I wasn't sure. I just knew something in that area. But I was making that kind of money, so I kept working at Cell One for through 1999, making that same amount of money, and it exposed me to all sorts of things financially. And I had rental properties, and I had a percentage ownership in a convenience store down in Las Vegas, Nevada, 2.5% ownership in a convenience store. And for all intents and purposes, I thought I was living the American dream, right? I was making money, spending, buying stuff, traveling. We had our kids. So I get into the financial services industry, and that's when I meet Garrett Gunderson,
Hmm.
August of 2000, Guardian Life, Leap Systems. That was my first exposure to the financial services industry. And Garrett and I started studying together, and we met Ray Hooper and Les McGuire. And we formed a company fall of 2000. And I'm learning about money. And I had made all that money selling cell phones. I wanted to learn about money, and I wanted to help other people learn about money too. But what happened early on for me is I was still in this high risk equals high reward mentality. And one day Les came to me and he says, "Hey, I got this investor guy. I think you may want to visit with him." And Brock, you've heard this before, but other people listening to this have not. I trusted Les. I did my due diligence, and I met with investor guy, and he promised to pay me 5% a month on my cash.
It's pretty good.
It is, right? So I gave him $50,000, and I'm getting 5% a month, which is $2,500 a month of reoccurring cash flow coming in. And at the time, I thought it was all legit, hard money lending. So I gave him another $250,000. Now I've got 300 grand with him, and the checks kept coming. So then I gave him another 500 grand. Now I've got 800 grand with him, 5%, and the checks kept coming. So I introduced it to some clients, to some friends, to some family, because it was such a great opportunity for me. I wanted to give them the ability to partake in this investment also. And next thing you know, we had over $10 million with Investor Guy, and the checks kept coming until August of 2007, and no check came. September, no checks came. I'm calling Investor Guy. He's not taking my calls. And during that time, I'm freaking out. Freaking out. Over $10 million, over $4 million of my cash, over $10 million of clients' cash in there, and no checks and no phone calls. And then all of a sudden my phone rings, and I answer it, and I hear on the other line, "This is Special Agent Mark Jones with the FBI. We understand you have investment dealings with Investor Guy. We need to talk." Brock, I can't tell you, man. I look back on that experience, and during that time, life was really confusing. Um, I ended up cutting a deal with the feds. I ended up wearing a wire for the FBI to find out where all this money went as I met with Investor Guy, but it was too late. Um, all of that cash was completely gone, completely gone. And I was a mess, man. I was drinking alcohol excessively. I was doing everything I could to mask the pain and not deal with the pain of losing all of that cash. It was my family's entire life savings, completely gone. That was the end of 2007, 2008, 2009. I didn't work those years. I was trying to stay alive, man. I was on
Yeah.
antidepressants. I was buying narcotic pain pills just to try to numb myself out from dealing with that. October of 2010, I wake up to a knock to our front door and I go. It was early in the morning, like 6 a.m. And I opened it up and it's my wife's family there, standing there. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, brother-in-laws, sister-in-laws, some nephews that were older adults, and two big U-Haul trucks backing up into the driveway of our house. And they said, we're here for Wendy and the kids. They're moving out. I remember slamming the door in their face. I remember freaking out. I remember my brother-in-law, who's ex-military, served in Iraq. He's telling me, dude, you just got to get out of the house and deal with your shit, do the best that you can. But 12 hours later, I found myself alone on the bathroom floor in our home when the kids were gone. I'll never forget watching our kids in the back of my wife's car as I sat on the front porch as they drove away. I'm not proud of this moment, Brock, but I loaded a bullet in the chamber of a Ruger P89 pistol and pressed it up against the roof of my mouth. I was alone on the bathroom floor, and I was screaming to God, why, God, why? When I had a rush come over my body, and I carefully set the gun down, and I promised to God and to myself in that moment that I would extract the lessons that led to that point of putting that gun in my mouth and to share them with as many people as I possibly could. To implement them in my life and to share them with as many people as I possibly could. That was the inspiration, Brock, that led me to get my shit together. I knew that I had to get healthy before I could even have a conversation with my wife again. And when my wife left me, it wasn't, hey, I want a divorce. It's, hey, you're not healthy to be around. You're not healthy to be around with the kids, myself. And I knew it. I knew that. I did have that awareness, thank God. But I went to work. I sobered up. I remember meeting with Garrett Gunderson. He watched me go through all of that. I remember him saying to me, Brock, and I share this with clients all the time, you can choose to leverage your past to create moving forward. And so I've been doing that every day since October of 2010. And it's the inspiration behind my book, What We're Worth. I hid from that for years. For years, I didn't want to share that story, Brock, because I'm in the financial services industry. And who wants to work with someone that's lost all this cash and clients that have lost all this money? But from that, well, first of all, I want to go back to this. 45 days later, after sobering up, I moved back in with my wife and kids. And I'm so glad I'm still here. I shared with you before we started this recording that it was our son's birthday yesterday, and our daughter came up with my son-in-law. And I was there for the birth of our grandson. I was there for the birth of our granddaughter. Our granddaughter's just over a month old. And I got to sit outside that door at the hospital and listen to her cry the very first time. And to think that I wouldn't have been here for that experience and many others since then. What's come from that is what I have learned, the life lessons, and what I share with every client, Brock, what I've shared with you, what I share with every client that I work with today. And by implementing the lessons that I extracted from that experience, I've been able to earn back all that cash that I lost, which was over $4.8 million. Yeah. And I share that with passion with clients today because, Brock, I'm sure you've felt this. I'm sure your clients have felt this. I know I've felt it. I know my clients have felt it, that like COVID was like the very first thing that like really woke a lot of people up. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And COVID, like it brought all this uncertainty in people and all this fear and this doubt and, you know, who's telling the truth, who's not telling the truth and what's real and what's not real and who can I trust and who do I not trust? Can I trust the government? Can I trust big financial institutions? Can I trust the news media or what they tell me on the news? Actually, like, is that truth? Like, what's true and what's not true? And especially when it comes to money, what's true and what's not true.
Yep.
And so, personal responsibility, like at a deep core level, Brock, I know you feel this. And I know you want your clients to feel this. I definitely feel it. I want my clients to feel this. I want them to take their lives back
Yep.
under their control and be clear about what's an asset, what's an investment, what strategy to implement into their lives financially. And that's the clarity that I learned. That's the clarity that I share with every client today. And it took me going through that experience to gain that clarity. And my mission is that people don't ever have to experience what I experienced to gain that clarity in their lives. And that's
Yep.
why I'm so passionate about what I do on a daily basis now.
Yeah. Well, Mike, it's funny that I've probably heard that story 100 times. My family was in the background of that story, so I've always known what was going on ever since I was a kid going through all that. And it's emotional every single time. But what a great story that is to know and experience God's just grace and mercy and redeeming love through all that, but also a story of resilience, of knowing that just because you got knocked down doesn't mean that you can't get back up and go to it again. Because, I mean, you've got a beautiful office there, you've got a beautiful family. You just talked about the fact that you earned back all of this money that was lost. It's not you're done and out, but it's what are you going to do, like what Garrett mentioned to you, like how are you going to leverage your past to create going into the future?
Yeah.
And I think that your story is one of the most important stories that could be shared right now, as I talk to a lot of younger professionals um, that are just right now. It's even though it may seem pretty hard to make money, it is once you get into the world and you're in the world of finance and just products and consumerism, I mean, you can make money hand over fist. And when you're young and you're doing an extremely good job, it's very easy to lose money
Yeah.
very quickly because you didn't have the principles around what was going on. It was just, hey, if I put my money here, I can make money. Without without thinking about what else is going on.
Yep.
So when you walk through this story and you think through what all you went through, how does that translate now into meeting with clients or other business owners or partners? Are you just going around saying, "Hey, you don't need to put your money in anything. Like you just need to hoard your cash, put it on your mattress"? Like, what are you actually sharing with these people that are some of those lessons that you learned?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for asking. And thanks for saying all that, Brock. I appreciate it. And I'm glad that you're sharing this with others too, for them to gain this clarity and this empowerment in their own lives and to take their life back under their control. So it's the framework of AIS. I rebranded our company to Vault AIS. And the A, the I, and the S stands for number one asset, number one investment, and number one strategy. So when I talk about number one asset, I ask people, do you know what a balance sheet is? And that's assets and liabilities. Assets minus liabilities equal the equity in our property value balance sheet.
Right.
Most people, especially business owners, are familiar with balance sheets, property value balance sheets. So if we have $1 million home and a $500,000 mortgage, million minus 500,000 is $500,000 in equity in your property value balance sheet. Most people get that. I had tied my self-worth up in my property value balance sheet. And when that went to zero, it actually went to negative 800 grand. When that went to a negative, I felt worthless,
Yeah.
of no worth, because I had tied my self-worth to a number. I wasn't even thinking about this adjoining balance sheet that we all have. And that adjoining balance sheet is an HLV balance sheet. Human life value. I talked about human life value years ago, but
Yep.
when I went through that emotional process and it's such a deep emotional level, I'd forgotten about that. And a
Right.
human life value balance sheet, if we think about assets that are human life value, and think about human life value as mental capital. Garrett Gunderson calls it investor DNA. So, and my version of it is human life value. And we all have a human life value balance sheet where there's assets and liabilities. And some of those assets on the human life value balance sheet would be things like knowledge, experiences, education, relationships. Relationships are a line item on the human life value balance sheet, right,
Yep.
Brock?
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah, extremely powerful. And there could be some liabilities on there also, like limiting mindsets, limiting beliefs, scarcity thinking, not feeling worthy, not feeling loved, things that take away versus add to, right? An asset is something that adds to versus takes away. And Garrett Gunderson and I talking about this, me doing my own personal study, me committing to extract the lessons. I look at both balance sheets today. I have clients look at both balance sheets. I've encouraged you, Brock, to do this. I encourage anyone hearing this to look at not only your property value balance sheet, but more importantly, your human life value balance sheet.
That's right.
Human life value is the source and creator of all property value. So it's a simple formula. We're in the financial services industry. We want to help people get more of what they want. We assist them in discovering what they want, number one, but it's in the financial services, it's in the property value balance sheet.
Yep.
So if we want more property value, we want more assets, we want more investments, we want more income, we must first increase this, our human life value, the intrinsic self-worth items of our lives. And so when I talk with a client and anybody listen to this, look at both, but look at your human life value balance sheet first. Knowing full faith and especially looking back on our life and finding lots of evidence to support it, that human life value is the source and creator of all property value. And then Brock, when we're working with families, I'm a married businessman with kids. I love working with married businessmen with kids. I'll circle both the property value and the human life value balance sheet, and I'll talk about estate planning. I'll talk about the Rockefeller method. And wouldn't it be great to leave both, not just the money, which is the fish, but how to actually fish.
Yeah.
Right? Teaching them to learn how to fish versus just giving them fish. But what if we could give them both?
That's right.
And I'm empowered by that today because I have that part of my estate plan. I know that you do also. I know that the clients that you work with have that and want that in their life too. And so now today I wake up and my clients wake up on a daily basis more empowered than ever before, knowing versus hoping that if something happens to them, they're going to leave the more important human life value assets. So I have a challenge that I give to all my clients when it comes to this conversation around number one asset.
Mm-hmm.
And Brock, I don't know if you've done this. Maybe you have. I don't remember. But I challenge all my clients to write a last letter. Have you done this, Brock?
I have. Yep.
You have. Okay. Have we talked about this?
We have.
Okay, great. I challenge my clients to write a last letter. I do it right here at my desk. Right here at my desk, I'll write a last letter. And I like doing it around the holidays every year. And I do it for me, mainly. Right. Because I gain clarity around what I stand for and what I don't. I write a letter to my wife, to my kids, to my grandkids, to my assistant Lacey that's been with me over 12 years now, people that I really care about, as if it was the last thing they were to read from me. It's a powerful exercise to gain clarity around what we truly stand for and what we don't in our lives. We benefit from that. And God forbid if something happened to us at an earlier age in life, we have that to also leave behind with everything else that we're doing around our human life value side of life.
That's right.
So number one asset, Brock, is you, the individual. People are assets, things are not. Human life value is the source and creator of all property value.
That's right. If I have a client listening to this, they're probably sick of hearing that, of how much I say that in every single meeting because that is like once you understand that, everything else begins to make more sense.
It does.
Yeah.
And so for anybody listening to this, and I'm sure I've said this to you, if you're not sure, test it. Find out for yourself,
Yep.
but find out. And
Yeah.
it again, it's not right or wrong what you're doing. It's either working or not working. Is what you're doing moving you closer to happiness or further away?
That's right.
They get to measure it. They get to find out.
Yep.
Brock, you have your plan. I have mine. We're assisting others with theirs.
That's right.
Yeah. So number one asset is you. People are assets, things are not. Human life value, source and creator of all property value. Number one, investment. Brock, what's put the most amount of cash in your pocket up until now in your life?
Uh, my career doing this financial business.
Yeah, your ability to produce in your area of expertise at the highest level. Well, newsflash, it's the same for all your clients. And it's going to
Yeah.
be, it's the same. It's that today and it's that tomorrow.
That's right.
Our ability to show up and produce an area of expertise at the highest level. So is crypto a good investment? Is real estate a good investment? Is our career a good investment? It depends. It depends on the human life value. So there's two main characteristics of number one investment: control and human life value. What we have control of, which is most people, if they own their own business, is their own business or their career that they're in, they have control in that area. You have control in running your business. You have knowledge, experience, expertise, purpose, and passion in your business. That's what has and will continue to put the most amount of cash in your pocket. I've got some clients that are investors in crypto early on, studied it. They know it inside and out, the mining, all this stuff. They've got tens of millions of dollars in there. I got clients that are worth tens of millions of dollars in real estate. That's their area of expertise.
Yep.
So it's about being very clear about what you're an expert in, what you have control in, knowledge and experience. And even with that, we can make, like you at the beginning of the call, you said, people can make money. Young people can make money. There's lots of stuff you can do to make money. So I then go into a conversation of short term and long term. We can make money short term. We can hustle, we can grind, we can do stuff. But unless we add purpose and passion to it, it doesn't extend typically into something long term. So control, and then under human life value is knowledge, experience, and expertise. And that would be short term. And then to add to it long term would be purpose and passion.
I've never heard you talk about that part. That is an important piece.
You agree, Brock?
1,000%. 1,000%.
And have you felt this in your own life or seen other clients experience this?
All the time. All the time. That's because that goes very far. Especially with younger guys who are just bouncing from sales job to sales job, or they're sitting in a position that they just absolutely despise.
Yeah.
They don't like it. They don't like getting up and going to work. They don't enjoy their life outside of work. But if you would just take a step back and look at what's going on and think about, okay, well, where is my purpose and passion? Where is that leading me? Where can I go to discover that? I think that part is huge because most of the clients we work with plan on living a long life.
Yeah.
So if we plan on living a long life, we might as well do something that we really enjoy.
That's exactly right. And we can do those things short term to discover this and discover that. I'd rather discover stuff with cash flow versus without cash flow.
Yes. Big time.
Because love it or hate it, I love cash flow. I love making money because the root of that is creating and exchanging value.
That's right.
There's a lot of fulfillment that comes from that. And I would rather discover purpose and passion with cash flow versus without. So I don't think you're saying this, Brock, which is stop what you're doing completely and try to go discover it without cash flow.
Right.
Maybe for some people, they need to do that. Maybe for others, not, of course.
That's right.
So yeah, number one, investment. Where do I invest? Now, let me add this to it because I mentioned this in my book, What We're Worth. I learned this from Tony Robbins. Wendy, my wife, and I, our kids, Kennedy, Caden, and my assistant Lacey went down to Dallas, Texas in 2016, 2017 to unleash the power within. We did the walk on fire, all of that. It was 8,000 people in a room, and Tony had all of us just chanting till 1 o'clock in the morning. It was
Yeah.
amazing energy. But Tony Robbins taught me the four basic needs of every human. And I think it's important for all of us to realize this. It's important. It's one of the lessons that I extracted for my own clarity that I share with clients. Four basic needs, just like eating food and having oxygen to breathe, the basic need of every human is certainty, uncertainty, significance, and love. Uncertainty is variety and risk. Whether we're conscious of it or unconscious of it, we will fulfill that need of uncertainty, of variety, and risk in our life.
Yeah.
So be conscious of it.
That's right. That's right.
Right?
Yep.
Be conscious of the area that we're taking risk. What I want people to do, and again, I want them to test it to find out if it's true for them, is to only take risk in an area where they have control, knowledge, experience, and expertise, purpose and passion, human life value. That's their career or their business. If someone's getting bored in their business, I know it because they're investing time, money, effort, and energy in an area where they have no control, no knowledge, no experience, no expertise, let alone any purpose or passion. And if they they start to neglect their business and put energy over here where they have no control, no human life value, and then they neglect their business and it goes down, and then they all of a sudden lose over here. Well, for me, that was a point where I thought about taking my life. And I don't want anybody to ever, ever, ever have to experience that.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so passionate about this. And Brock, I know you are also. So that's number one asset, number one investment. Number one strategy, what do we do with cash that we're going to relinquish control of?
That's right.
Three main characteristics: guaranteed, protected, and liquid, GPL. Again, test it. If you're going to relinquish control of cash, keep it guaranteed, protected, and liquid. Mainly to protect our mindset so we can continue to produce in our area of expertise at the highest level, because nothing will outproduce that.
That's right.
So my big business owner clients, Brock, I want them to produce at a really high level in their business, grow, expand, bring in associates, do this, open up this, all within their area of expertise. And then save money. So there's investing and there's savings. Invest over here in your career and your business, and then save money over here that's guaranteed, protected, and liquid.
Yeah.
Build big business, build big cash savings.
That's right.
And that's why we use the product called whole life insurance that's properly structured and optimally funded, because it's the only product that has those characteristics.
That's right. The only one.
Yeah, that's why we use it. That's why we use it. So Brock, for you, your opportunity is in your ability to communicate this message at an even higher level with more efficiency and to sell another policy. That's your opportunity.
Yep.
And that's my opportunity. Man, and you and I get tempted all the time because we see clients and all across the country investing in all these different things.
Yep.
But we come together to say, hey, remember what AIS is in your life.
That's right.
What you have control in, knowledge, experience, expertise. Now, I know you have some experience with real estate. I have no idea what else you invest in, but it's not right or wrong. It's either part of our AIS or it's not. And
That's
so
right.
I'll go through that with the client and we'll measure what they're currently doing up against AIS. And then I'll just let them tell me, as long as they've bought into wanting AIS in their life.
That's right.
Because if they do, then we'll just measure it against that. And then
That's
anything that comes up in the future, we'll measure it against that. And that's what's brought me not only the most amount of peace, but the ability to earn back that cash to have the purpose and passion and to be able to expand my human life value beyond anything that I thought was possible, opening up connections, and Gunderson and I rewriting What Would the Rockefellers Do, and just all these different things that have come from that, and all these different things that are going to come from it tomorrow that I don't even know about right now today, because I'm clear about this in my life and I help other people with that clarity too. And Brock, I know you do the exact same thing for people that you work with.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. When you wait, I just think about how many times I like to share the AIS method, and one of the key points there is the fact, like, when you're sharing this with somebody, they have to buy into it too. Like, if they're not on board with it, then it's not going to make sense to them.
Yep.
But when you moved to the number one strategy, where anywhere you're going to relinquish control of your dollar, keep it guaranteed, protected, and liquid. When you talk about you are going to relinquish, what's first your definition of relinquish control?
An area where they don't have knowledge or experience or expertise. So we've defined what that is for someone.
Mm-hmm.
For most people that I work with are business owners. So if they're going to put money somewhere outside of their business, would be outside of their control.
Right. And when you say anywhere that you're going to relinquish control, keep it guaranteed, protected, and liquid, how are you going to keep it guaranteed, protected, and liquid if you're going to relinquish control of it?
In a product that has an underlying guarantee of a rate of return, that's protected against creditor claims and lawsuits, and that's liquid to be able to use back into their business and back into their personal life for future money decisions that they're going to make anyway, but they pay themselves the spread, which is the distinction in the new version of What Would the Rockefellers Do, to dispel any myths around infinite banking, that they pay themselves the spread between, and of course we talk about cost of money and all of that, but the example that I give the most is our son bought a vehicle. We bought our cabin recently through one of our policies, but we're in a high interest rate environment.
That's right.
And our son's vehicle was 7.5%. This mortgage we wanted to get on a second home, a cabin, was 7.2%. But we could borrow it from the life insurance company using our policy as collateral at 5%. So we paid ourselves the spread between 5 and 7.2, and that's the benefit of using our cash for future money decisions that we're going to make anyway, but we pay ourselves the spread.
Yep. So just in case anybody didn't hear that, first, Mike, are you saying that you are not borrowing from yourself?
That is correct. I am not saying
that. Thank you. And you are not paying yourself interest, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And you're not a newbie in this. Like, you know what you're doing when it comes to life insurance policies, right?
Yeah, I have Becoming Your Own Banker on the shelf over here, Nelson Nash. Love and respect the man. I interviewed him on a radio show in 2002, Brock.
Yeah.
Here in
you've been around the block, and you're no small producer either. You've been at the highest level for a very long time. You know what you're talking about. So as you think through this with business owners and other high producers, you're implementing this policy for them, not only for the fact of the cash value, but there's also the very important piece of the death benefit, right?
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about the importance of the death benefit?
I'd love to. Yeah, Brock. So I've had my producer's license as a life insurance agent here in the United States for over 25 years, and my 13th client passed away a few months ago. So I've delivered that death benefit to a surviving spouse or to a family, two of which were Garrett and I's original business partners, Ray and Les, that I mentioned earlier, and they died in a tragic plane crash out here in Utah, June 8th of 2006. They flew from northern Utah to southern Utah. I met with them. We did a seminar that night, and they were on their flight back when the pilot, Blaine, and our two partners crashed and died. So the first reason why, and there's books on the shelf right over here on the end called The Economics of Life Insurance by Solomon Hubner. You got that on your shelf too?
Yep, sure right do. There.
Yep. Yep. I have that version from Leap also.
Yeah.
And then I
Yep.
was able to find one that's out of print from years and years and years
Oh,
ago, a
that's
really
cool.
old one that's sitting right next to it. But yeah, so the first reason why people want to buy life insurance, Brock, and I know it's why you buy it, and I know it's why you share this with others, is to replace their value economically for a family, mainly, or for some sort of a survivor. And as a producer, we can leverage that by knowing versus hoping that if something happens to us, we're going to replace that economic value to our family. And
Yep.
so when I talk to producers that have a family, I'm like, here's an area where you don't have expertise managing the risk of death. Let's
Hmm.
transfer that risk to an insurance company that's far better at managing that risk because it's not part of your area of expertise. Let them manage it. That frees you up to not only enjoy life at a higher level, but be able to produce at a higher level. So clients that just buy death benefit, whether it's whole life or term insurance, just death benefit in general, they not only enjoy life at a higher level, they're able to produce at a higher level.
That's right.
And if people aren't sure about that, test that one.
Yeah,
It's powerful
it is.
because
It
people
really is.
come to us, Brock, and they want to know. They're curious. They want to know, how much can I be insured for? And there's no way for them to be overinsured either.
That's right.
Yeah. So the death benefit, number one, is to replace us economically for survivorship reasons. But then whole life insurance is there as asset insurance later in life. The meeting just before ours, a couple out of Texas, and she's a nurse and he's a school teacher. Pension. I introduced Pension Max to them for the first time. The classic example that I give the most is I'm sitting in my home office. I'm 53 years old. When I turned 73 or sometime in my early 70s,
Mhm.
my wife and I plan on doing a reverse mortgage on our home. Our home's valued at around 2.2, 2.3 million today. In 20 years, when I'm in my early 70s, it's going to be at least double that. Wouldn't you
Yeah,
say,
at
Brock?
least. At least.
At least. We're going to have a lot of equity in our home. We can do a reverse mortgage, tax-free income.
Yep.
We're not able to outlive it. But when we die, upon the second death between my wife and I, our kids can choose with the family trust to pay off the reverse mortgage and keep the home or not. They're under no obligation to do so. But that gives my wife and I the ability to spend and enjoy more and on a tax-free basis and leave it behind because we have that death benefit that gives us the permission slip to spend and enjoy more. And then the guy that has the pension, the school teacher, he can choose a higher pension by maximizing, take the higher amount versus the lower amount. And then if he dies, his death benefit will come in and replace the difference. And CRTs, and there's just a bunch of different examples. So death benefit of a life insurance policy, the way that I talk to clients, and I know you do also, Brock, is there for income replacement. And there's a lot of ways to leverage that,
Yep.
especially for the producer.
That's right.
And then it's asset insurance later in life.
That's right. And it doesn't cost you wealth. It actually gives you more wealth over time.
Property value and the more important human life value.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, the peace of mind. My
Yeah.
son-in-law that married our daughter, Corbin, he loved that conversation that I had with him. He owns his own small business. He
Yeah.
has two little kids, our grandkids. And he's empowered by that now. Before, prior to meeting with me, he didn't have any life insurance and he saw it as an expense,
Hmm.
a necessary evil, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now he's empowered by it. And you take someone from zero to several million, and they're like, several million.
That's right.
It's empowering to them, and we want it to be for them.
That's right.
Yeah.
And let's touch on that. So your son-in-law is not old by any means. He's pretty young, right?
Yeah.
How young is he?
29.
Okay.
28.
Okay. So one of the things that you hear more often than not, especially with the people I talk to, because I get referred a lot of younger people, is, "Oh, Brock, I'm too young to be doing this life insurance or whole life insurance specifically, especially if they are in a position to where they could fund a lot towards the whole life insurance. Right now, I'm thinking of a young man. His name's Michael, and he's an awesome W-2 employee, but he's trying to buy all these businesses and do things because that's where he feels like his purpose and passion is at, and he's building a career out of it. But as soon as the life insurance was introduced, everybody else around him was, that's too much. You don't need to do that. You just need to put your money into businesses, other places. Why would such a young person, me speaking as somebody who bought their first policy at 18, why would it be instrumental for you to do this when you're younger?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different ways we could go with that. It depends. First of all, it depends on what he's got going on in his
Yep.
personal life. But a couple of things. My assistant Lacey that I talked about earlier, been with me over 12 years. Her niece, that's her age, Lacey just flew back. She lives in Connecticut now. Her husband's an army recruiter. But her niece that lives in northern Utah, Lacey just flew back from northern Utah 2 days ago, Sunday, because her niece's husband, who's 31 years old, died on his motorcycle. Went out for a Harley ride, went around a turn a little bit too wide, and had a head-on collision. Killed him. Married, two young kids, 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. No life insurance. That's one example. Garrett Gunderson is another example. You may have heard of him. He, my business partner and co-author of What Would the Rockefellers Do? But there was a period of time where he was uninsurable. Do you know this, Brock?
I did, yeah.
That's kidneys. Yeah, so we can secure this at a young age, and even if it's term insurance and it's something we can convert to whole life, but the decision of whole life insurance on a young person's life is not only the insurability and locking in a rate at a young age that will last their entire life, that if properly structured and optimally funded can never be taken away from them,
Hmm.
but it's whole life insurance as an asset class.
That's
It's
right.
actuarial science, and it's something that's used in conjunction with all of their other money decisions. So for a young guy like that, if he's into businesses and that's part of his human life value, it's the conversation of, if whole life insurance is something that could make those businesses worth more, would you want that?
Absolutely.
Is that what you would say, Brock? How would you add to that?
Absolutely. When you, I think it goes back to, again, your structure of AIS. When you understand that you are your greatest asset, your number one investment is in line with your human life value, your number one strategy should be around anywhere that you're going to relinquish control of your dollars. How do you keep it guaranteed, protected, and liquid? And understanding at a young age, you're going to be doing this for a very, very long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I,
And any of my successful business owners, they
mhm,
store a certain amount of cash
mhm,
for opportunities, for what ifs, to get through COVID. Is there a recession happening? Right? There's this war chest of cash that they keep if
yep,
they're a successful business owner. If
mhm,
they want to weather the storms,
yep,
well, what are the characteristics of cash that you relinquish control of? Guaranteed protected liquid.
that's right.
The product that meets those characteristics is whole life insurance, as long as it's properly structured and optimally funded, which is key.
Yep, it is such a key aspect.
Yeah.
So, Mike, as we wrap this up, is there any piece of advice, last piece of advice that you would share with a uh, high producer, a business owner, or just somebody in general that is looking introspectively at their life, at their finances right now to say, where do I go? What do I do? What's the next step? Or is there just, is there a challenge that you would give out to these people?
Yeah. Yeah. I want all of my clients to know versus hope that what they're doing with their money is the most efficient thing that they possibly can. I want them to know. I want them to I want them to utilize a model in their life, AIS, the LEAP system, LEAP with AIS together, to be able to measure, because most people think, but they don't really know. And they can gain that knowing, Brock, working with you, working with myself, to know versus hope. And we can leverage that not only in the enjoyment of our life on our human life value side of things, but that is the source and creator of all property value. So I want them to have that clarity. So if they don't have that clarity, if anybody listening to this does not have that clarity, that's the next conversation for them to have with you. And then one more thing that I was going to say earlier that I didn't mention that I just thought of too when you asked that question is, when we were talking about choosing to leverage our past to create moving forward, we can't change what has happened in our life in the past, but we can change our story around it.
That's right.
And that's powerful. So stay open to that. Work with Brock. Work with looking at your stories to know versus hope, and then leverage that to create moving forward.
Yeah. That part is probably the most powerful. So thank you, Mike. I appreciate that bunch.
You're welcome. My pleasure.